Okay, today's July 17th, 2019. It's 7:02 p.m. We'll call to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. At the beginning of every Development Review Board meeting, I give a speech that explains how the procedures here work. It doesn't deal with every situation. It's meant to give you sort of a broad understanding of how we operate. So if you've not been here before, I suggest you listen up. If you have, I will try to get through it quickly. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, that means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we are on the record, this is your only opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. Even if you appeal our decision to the environmental court, that court will not take new testimony or take new evidence at its hearing. Instead, it's going to look at the record we created here today, the regulations and the applicable law, and determine if the evidence supports our findings and decision. Only interested people that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly encourage anybody here to speak up at this hearing. Because we're on the record, I am going to ask that you swear or affirm that your testimony will be truthful. Generally what I do at the beginning is I tell people that if you think there's even the smallest chance you're going to speak, raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. If you don't give testimony, that's fine too. But if you're not sworn in, you really shouldn't be speaking on the record. So anybody who thinks you might speak, if you raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you hereby, you don't really need to.
I didn't think so.
Under
Okay.
the duty of
Warned
voluntary
us, so.
inspection. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Sure.
Okay. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. This is a little confusing tonight because we have a couple of alternates here. This is a 7-person. We have one alternate here. Yeah, okay. We just changed we just added people, so pardon me. But we have 7 full-time members and 2 alternates, one of whom is here tonight. And sometimes we have conflicts and we have to conflict out of an application and the alternate person jumps on. Otherwise, we just make them watch so that when it's their time, they'll know what to do. Sorry. And so that means the amount of votes an applicant needs to pass is 4 votes out of 7. 7 of us will be appointed to hear each individual application, only 4 of those people to agree with you to get what you want, generally speaking. If we didn't have a full board present, we generally consider requests to continue, but obviously that's not an issue tonight, thank goodness. This is the first time we've had more than a full board in quite some time, actually. After taking testimony and evidence, we will close the public hearing and we may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on the application at the hearing, it is our written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided to our board by the town planning department, town attorney, or really any representative from any town department are considered in exactly the same way and hold the same weight as information from the applicant and any interested parties who come here and offer evidence. First of all, can I have confirmation that our meeting's been properly warned?
Yes, it is.
And can we approve the minutes from our meeting on June 17th, 2019?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second? You second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Does anybody have any disclosures of conflicts of interest or any ex parte communications? I'm simply going to note that sometimes my office has cases with Ms. Rowell, and I don't think I have any matters going with you at the moment. And I'm not even sure it would be a conflict of interest, because usually we're working against each other if we have something going on together. But in any event, I don't view the fact that occasionally we work together as a conflict of interest. If anybody finds that concerning, now is the time to say something. No other conflicts? Okay. So the first application on our list is 2019-11, which was originally heard 2 meetings ago, and I was not present for the May meeting. Ms. Hasegawa was chair there, so I'm going to yield the chair to address that application briefly.
Okay, for people who don't remember, or people who are new, this was the case of Ivy Lane, where the plaintiff or the applicant was keeping sheep, goats, and chickens. And we did a site visit. And if I can summarize the site visit a little bit, and maybe Ian will jump in. We found that it was near a wetland, and it was sloping kind of down toward it in some places. You agree, Eric?
Yeah.
And I don't think there was enough room there to build a berm to contain any runoff. And Ian is the one that walked the neighboring pasture that she also owns, and you said it was wet.
The way I would describe it is Ivy Lane is off of Greenleaf Street. It's a short, relatively short dead-end street. And the property that we looked at had quite a bit of it fenced off for the sheep. It sort of went up against a hill and some trees, and then their not fenced off area was very, very wet. And then sort of had some, I think, fruit trees kind of at the border of the next property. Can you, Eric, remind me of what you saw in terms of the concern about runoff? I'm trying to remember how it was set up. I remember we sort of stepped over a bridge to get to the sheep area.
That whole place was wet.
Okay, that's the wetness you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
I don't want to speak for Eric, but I was there too, and I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah,
it was wet land.
okay. All right. I felt that the sheep area was relatively dry, and that most of that wetness came from the...
This is the Greenleaf Street, right?
No, yes, right off.
Off of Greenleaf Street,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And so I perceived as most of the wetness coming from the land that the sheep weren't on, or the part of the parcel that the sheep weren't on. So that was my recollection of quite a bit undeveloped.
Is somebody here to speak about this property? Go to the mic. Are you here for Ms. Nitzer?
Sorry?
Are you here for the applicant, or are you a neighbor?
I'm kind of a neighbor. I mean, I live up on Country Hill,
Okay.
which is the next street up that goes around.
Yeah.
So,
The lasso.
so-
The lasso. It looks like a lasso.
my ears are blocked. I went swimming earlier today, so
Don't
I
worry, don't worry.
apologize. But
It's shaped like a lasso.
yes.
Yeah.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Go ahead, I'm
Can you
sorry.
identify yourself and,
okay, Kevin Mills. I live up on, like I said, Country Hill, which goes up around. I just have a couple of concerns, and I have been down to the property in question probably a half a dozen times trying to talk to somebody about what their plans might be, but every time I've gone down there, nobody was there. So I mean, people have a busy life, I understand that, but I just worry that it's a slippery slope that we're going on, because we do have town ordinances in a place for a reason. And I get chickens. I mean, I got no problem with chickens or eggs. Love eggs, you know. I mean, so I don't have an issue with that at all. But there's a reason we have an ordinance against having roosters, in town as well. So I worry about that if we allow them to have sheep and goats, and I understand there's another item on the agenda this evening for a property concerning pigs. And so, and like I say, I'm not against animals. I have a bird, a cat, and a dog. I get the whole complete food chain, at my house. So it's not that I'm anti-animal at all by any means, but like I said, we have ordinances in town for a reason, and I just worry that, if we say yes, then what's going to stop somebody else from coming up, next month and say, hey, I want to have a horse, maybe I want a couple of pigs myself, so, and what would the grounds be for you denying me, that opportunity to have farm animals? I mean, if you want to have a farm, I mean, I get that, but there's a lot of property around Brattleboro for sale, and, that's the place where the animals should be, and that's where they should be, the happiest, and like I said, I'm not against animals whatsoever. I just worry about setting a bad precedent, and that there's ordinances, on the books for a reason. So that I just said my 2 cents worth, but thank you.
Thank you very much. So, since the applicant is not here, can I have a motion that we go into a brief deliberative session?
Could I ask the gentleman who just spoke?
Yes.
If he could, do you mind coming back up? I had one question for you.
Oh, no, it's like getting called to the principal's
No.
Okay.
Think of us as trying to gather information. You had just used the phrase you had a couple of concerns, you would hope to go down and talk to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to state what your concerns are here on the public record?
My concerns would be like, who would be taking care of the animals?
Okay.
Like I said, I went down 6 times
Yeah.
at different times during the day. I saw the chickens in a very small, I would have loved to see the chickens walking around, to be honest with you. But I also worry about, the predators that might come around. We do have a family of foxes, or foxeye, whatever it is, foxes. There's obviously a mom and a dad fox that are coming around to feed their kids. And I'm just worried about the other predators that might come around, which is what they're experiencing on Chestnut Street, now. And like I said, I've got the utmost respect for all animals, and I want to honor all the animals, but I'm not going to blame the animals if somebody comes up and wants to eat, their animals. But I don't want to see that happen, And like I said, there's ordinances in town for a reason. I mean, and I would think your duty would be to enforce those ordinances, which means that, we don't allow farm animals. I mean, they're not service sheep, they're not service goats. I mean, and even that would be a bit of a stretch, but, but I just worry that, if you say yes to them, you won't be able to say no to somebody else, because, like I say, I love bacon, so maybe I want to have a couple of pigs. And what would be your basis for denying me the permit for having farm animals if you allow somebody else to have farm animals in town? That's all I'm saying.
Thank you for clarifying. I will make a motion that we enter deliberative session to discuss this.
Second.
All in favor of? Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Seven 7:30, and I'm calling the meeting back into order. I have a motion.
I move we deny the conditional use due to the fact that it's in a residential neighborhood, but at the same time, we would like to give the person, the appellant, till November 1st to have the animals off the property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Am I back time for this one?
Yes.
The next application is 2019-69. Sarah Short, I'm guessing, Mr. Rowley, you're here on that application? Have you know we like people sit at the table here? Is that all right?
Both of us?
Whatever you want to do. Whoever's going to tell us about the project, if you could sit there with the microphone so that it projects to the people watching.
Questions? You want us both there?
Yeah.
Probably a good idea. Probably a good idea.
Could I ask the chair a question? Because I'm a layperson and not a
Yeah.
lawyer. Why did the lawyer not swear in? Is she bound by some other?
We're always under oath when we're making representations before any judicial tribunal.
Okay, and so because we're a quasi-judicial,
Yeah, I mean, there are situations like, it's pretty rare where a judge will put a lawyer under oath, but that means that the judge suspects the lawyer is doing something really bad.
okay.
Uh,
Again, you told me if I joined this board, I'd learn a lot, so I had to ask this question.
Also, there were times I've seen that Craig would come in and not be representing anyone, but he would take the oath because he's here, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that was really, yeah, in his individual
Yeah,
capacity, that's
great.
kind of a different
Yeah.
thing.
That pass out?
But please,
Yeah.
yes, sorry.
Right.
Discussing the finer points.
I learned a lot. Legally, is his.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay,
There's no rush though, if you need to get your things in order.
I think I'm all set. You all set?
Yeah.
Baby's quiet, so
Yeah.
far, so good.
You better get
I'll
going.
hurry. Okay, my name is Lori Browell. I'm an attorney here in Brattleboro, and I am representing Sarah Short in the appeal of a zoning administrator's decision. And if we have to, then an application for a conditional use permit. So there's really two issues here, and that is that if the DRB finds that Sarah Short and her family's two pigs, whose names are Hamilton and Benny, were initially considered by the zoning administrator as pets about a year ago. If the board considers them to still be pets, then we're done, we can go home early. Because pets are allowed in the residential neighborhood of Chestnut Street West. If you don't believe they're pets, then we go on to look for a conditional use permit, and we filled out that application. And I have it in your packet as the last enclosure, and what I'd like to do is go through it with my client, see if she can maybe bring it more to life for you. And of course, then with the conditional use permit, we would be having to prove that the impact of two pigs that stay primarily in the home if there's an impact on the neighborhood. But that'll be the last topic that we go through. So we would start in your packets with the notice of violation. And I think I may have put the sticker over the date, but the date is May 23rd, 2019. It's the reason we're here. So I'm going to ask Sarah to take a look at that and read, if she would, the first two sentences to kind of figure out where we are on this.
I recently observed that you are keeping farm animals on your property without a conditional use permit to with two pigs. I understand the pigs may have been treated as house pets in the past, but they now seem to be managed as farm animals.
Okay, so that was our notice of violation, and it came in, as I said, in this past May, and that's why we're here. And number two is, second enclosure is our appeal of the administrative officers, they call it AO, or zoning officer, administrative officer's decision that now they are no longer pets. And the reason for the appeal is summarized very nicely in line number 3, and I'll ask Sarah to read that for me.
Pets, not farm animals, they're smaller than farm pigs. They sleep in the house and they're kept the same as our dogs.
And what, the specific relief that we're requesting is number 4?
To allow to be kept as pets, Hamilton and Benny.
Can I just give you a quick question?
Sure,
Where-
anytime.
Where are they during the day? I remember you said this one of the other times you were here, but I just can't remember the answer.
They go outside for part of the day mostly, or usually I should say, when weather's permitting. They were raised in the house, so they don't really like it unless it's optimal weather. They don't go out in the winter either, it's too cold.
Okay.
And is there somebody generally home? Is there an adult in the house?
Yes, I work nights, I work second shift, so I'm always home, and my boyfriend's home as well, and either one of us, we might run to the store occasionally, be gone for a quick couple minutes, pick up one of our kids, but it's never an extended period of time. We bring them back in if that's the case, or we work our schedule around them.
So this hearing was originally scheduled last month for June 18th. And Sarah, can you explain why we asked for an extension?
I had just given birth. I had a cesarean and it was a complicated one. I had extended stay in the hospital. So even though I was technically out, I had a week-old baby and was not able to drive or really move around or do anything.
And I would have attended, but I didn't realize that the neighbor would have been here. But we're here now, so that's what's important. And we have the baby with us, so that's a good thing. And Sarah, where do you live? Maybe you can look at number 4.
Okay, so on the map, I'm the orange lot.
Okay. And do you see Western Avenue? Can you just explain where we are in the
Yes,
town?
so the top highlighted road is Western Ave, and I'm off of Maple Street. So on the bottom here, if you follow Maple Street, it continues, and then Chestnut Street is a sharp turn to the right.
And is
And we're
it,
at the end, it's a cul-de-sac.
level or does it go downhill?
It's mostly level, and then in the very back, it does go up.
Okay. And are you backed up then against Route 91?
Yes, but there is a large wooded area. So the side is 91, and then the large wooded area, that my understanding is the towns is behind us.
And who's the yellow house next to you?
That is Richard and Carol Lowlock.
And that would have been the person who came to the last meeting?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Can you
And,
remind me, are our pigs fully grown? They get a little bigger?
They're pretty much fully grown. They're 2 years. They won't get much bigger. They can gain maybe 10 more pounds, but they're not going to double in size at this point.
What's their present weight? Ballpark?
Like 55 pounds.
55?
Yeah.
Could you make
Not a
a,
very big pig.
No.
could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
How would you, I'm a visual person, could you make a rough estimate of if your pig
Yeah.
was standing on the table? And
Yeah.
what
So
shape or
they're
size it
standing
would
on the
be?
table. Yeah, we're standing on the table. They're probably about this tall.
Okay,
Their back, and then maybe this long.
okay.
They're not big at all.
what was the genetics on that? Did you meet the parents?
I did. So, yeah, where I bought them offline, off a pig breeder, and so I was able to go to her house and meet the pigs as well. Mother was 100 pounds, father was 60, I believe. So she told me that they would be somewhere in there.
And was she breeding for meat?
No, she breeds just mini pigs, and they are actually a Juliana breed. Their father was a purebred Juliana, which is one of the smallest breeds of pigs, and they're usually kept as pets and not because they just don't produce enough meat. They can be, if you brought them to a butcher, they're allowed to do.
What type of breed is this? What,
The
does it have
Juliana.
a specific?
Yeah, it's a Juliana breed. Like the Potbelly is a breed.
Is it a mini Juliana or?
They are mini.
Okay.
Which of the lots on this map is Miss Shepherd?
She would be the one next to the low lot, so it's not shaded, but it's the one next to the yellow.
One to the west?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then who's on the blue?
The blue is one of my neighbors, it's a double lot, and that's Adam and Lisa Petlock.
Okay. And we mentioned that because we have a letter from her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Lisa.
saw that.
Okay. So the only,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Have pigs gone through puberty yet?
I mean, in a way, they are fixed though, so they won't really, fully hit puberty, but they are considered at this point adults, they're not considered, piglets anymore.
So are they males, both of them?
Yeah, so both of them are fixed, and we've had them fixed really young.
And how did that, I mean, did you bring them to the vet or what?
I did, so, I acquired Hamilton first, I got him at 2 months old, and we brought him in a cat carrier to the vet. And I made it very clear to the vet that I wanted the works for him, if you will. I wanted him put under, I wanted him to leave with antibiotics, and I wanted him to leave with pain medicine, because that's not normal for pigs. And so I wanted to make it very clear that they get treated as that. And Benny was castrated before we got him. We got him about maybe a month later. Same breeder though, same litter as Hamilton.
So how long ago did you move to Chestnut Street?
A couple years ago.
And when did you decide to get a pig?
I have always wanted a pet pig, just because they're smart, they're affectionate, and it's always been a goal of mine to get a pig. But I didn't get the pigs until I had been there a few months.
And did you research the?
I did. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting myself into, and I wanted to provide the best home for pigs. I didn't want to just throw them into a house and have them suffer. So upon my research, I did find that zoning is often an issue, and that a lot of there's a lot of shelters for pigs because they were taken into a family and then the rules, the owner didn't look into it. So I reached out to Kathy Burrows, the animal control, and asked her what the rules were. She said that she would get back to me. She didn't. We played phone tag a couple times, and then finally she said that she wasn't really sure. The person that I would need to speak to would be Brian Bannon for zoning.
And what did Brian talk about?
I informed Brian that I was wanting pet pigs, that they would be smaller. He did ask what size they would be, and at the time I didn't know because I hadn't gotten the pigs. I hadn't even known where I was going to get the pigs at that point, and I said that they could be about 200 pounds, but they would live inside, and that would be their home, but like any animal, they would need to go outside. And he said as long as they were treated like an animal in our house, that would be fine. We couldn't leave them outside for extended periods of time. And
This is number 5 you're referring to, right?
Yes, so number 5, and he does say in the email as well, to minimize the neighborhood impact, that he talks about making an enclosure closer to the highway than to the neighbors. But I actually never have even made an enclosure for them because they are not outside long enough. If they need an enclosure, then they would need to come in.
Did he talk to you about the size of the pigs or the number of pigs?
No, he was okay with it being under 200 pounds. And he did say too that there's other people in the town that have pets as pigs, so we didn't see a problem with it.
And did you rely on that decision to go ahead?
I did, and so I asked him for it in an email, just to cover my bases at the time, because this would have been, to lose the pigs would have been a fear of mine. Just because I welcome them in as my family, and my family loves them as their own family. But also, it's traumatic, in my opinion, to any animal to be part of a family and then brought into a humane society.
So did you celebrate their birthday?
Yes.
Are they brothers? Is that
Yes,
right?
yeah, so they have the same birthday, they're in December.
And so are they about the same size of a dog? Depending on the dog, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. They're smaller than a dog that weighs as much as them though.
Okay. And what do you do about litter boxes or something like that?
We have designated areas in the house that have a pee pad of sorts on it, and they're trained to use that. And then they get cleaned as we would, just like we do a litter box or something in that fashion. And so they are trained to use that appropriately. And their waste actually even out if they go outside, because sometimes they do. Just like when we're picking up dog poop, we also pick up theirs. And we actually have, I buy them special, they're compostable plastic bags, but they're not really plastic. but it's that same kind of material. And so we go out, it's usually one of my children's responsibilities, and they pick it up, and then that way it can get tied up and put in the compost bin. So it can be composted, but it doesn't have an added smell to it.
Do they go outside and then they go outside, do they go to the front porch?
Yes, they do. We have a 3-season porch, and they do hang out there quite a bit. In the winter, they might go out there if it's not too cold again, but they do go out there. They have a pea pad out there as well.
Do they have any toys?
Yes, they have this little thing we made that has rocks and hay in it, so then that way they can root. We throw food in there for them, and that way they can get the food and kind of root and still have some of their natural habitats.
Do you have windows on that porch facing the neighbor?
We do. It has windows on 3 of the sides, and I did close the windows that are closest to the low lots. They're really the only windows that share any kind of front view of a neighbor, but those windows do stay closed, those storm windows.
Do they do any tricks?
Yes. They do come to their name. We train them to come to their name. They do also spin, like you tell it, you like make a dog sit for their food, we make them spin, and they just kind of walk in a circle. And then they also jump.
Do they come when they're called?
Yes,
And are you raising them for bacon, like the man who testified ahead of you?
absolutely not. If they will eventually pass on at some point, and in that situation, it would be cremated, and we would keep their ashes like we have with other animals.
And do you have children in the house? You referred to the kids?
Yes, I have 2 stepchildren, and then the baby that I just had.
And what's their relationship with the kids?
Unofficially, that's their brother and sister. That's how we refer to them, to the pigs. But they're very close with the pigs. It's not out of character for someone to come into our house and find any of us laying on the floor with the pigs. They're very affectionate. They love to be pets. And so we have several big animal beds around our house, and oftentimes that's where they lay throughout the day. We lay on it with them.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
How are they contained when they're outside? Is there a fence?
Yes, the whole yard is fenced in, so we just let them have kind of free reign of the yard, because I just felt like that was the fair thing to do. My dogs have free reign of the yard.
Are they getting out?
No,
The pigs, not the dogs.
yeah, no.
Neither
no,
one.
they haven't.
Have the neighbors, the lots, ever complained to you directly, or?
There was one time that Bud came and spoke to my boyfriend, who said that he could smell manure, and asked if we put anything on it like lye or anything. And he did say we don't even have manure laying around. It's not like in a farm, for instance, where they just have a spot that they go and we let that do its thing. It's properly picked up, and I mean every day one of my children or myself or my boyfriend is out there picking up. So we kind of didn't know even how to.
Where's the compost store?
We have a compost for the animals that's on the side of the house. So if it's closer to our door, but it's not. It's on the other side of the house. It's not on the side where the neighbors are.
It's on the I-91 side?
Yeah. And we have a food compost that's there as well.
Okay.
And did you work with Brian on the composting for the chickens?
Yes.
That's number 6, I think.
Yes, so for number 6, we did get an email from Brian about the chicken shavings, or well, the chicken poop being burned. And I did explain to him that we're not really burning the poop, we're burning, because when the chickens roost at night, that's where they do most of their business. They don't hang out in the coop, they just lay eggs in there. So we were burning the wood shavings, but I could figure that maybe one of the chickens stepped in their own poop, walked over, and so maybe it did smell in a way that we hadn't considered, and so we did shut it down and we stopped doing it altogether. And we did get actually another compost bin specifically for the chickens.
So you had one visit from the Lalats
Yeah,
that they complained, and then you spoke to Brian off and on about chicken waste?
yeah, and, yeah, those are the emails, those are the only communications that I have.
Can I just go back to the email from Brian? You didn't have the pigs yet. But
Correct.
you asked him ahead of time. He said, yes, it's okay as long as it's a pet and it's not dangerous or hazardous. and
Correct.
Keep them in the house, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And then you got the pigs?
Right, so then I even started the search. I had only gone to a couple, there's one in Methuen that takes shelter pigs, because I at the time was thinking of adopting a pig. And I didn't even know what avenue I was gonna get a pig at that point. So once I got the green light, that was when I buckled down and figured it out.
Did you pay money for the pigs?
Yeah, I paid 300 each.
You don't have to say how much, I just wanted to know.
Yes.
When did the pigs join the household?
The date?
Roughly. Or the month
Um,
and year, perhaps?
it was Christmas, so it was December, not last year, but the year before, so 2016? 17. And they were born in September of that year.
It was just a month or so after this email.
Yeah.
Lori, would you indulge me to see if any members of the public are here to speak adverse to the application?
Oh,
I'm just curious, because I think everybody's here is for it.
everybody in the front row is with us.
I know that, I see Mr. Mills in the back.
Yep.
Did you want to speak about, don't worry, I'm not calling you to the microphone. I just wanted to know if you wanted to speak about this application. I always like to know if there's public comment, but there's no obligation.
Well, I don't mind. Like I said, I like bacon, so I'm okay with it.
Well,
You realize that's not what we're talking about, right?
It just, to me, it sounds like it was a pretty well rehearsed back and forth here. And like I said, if you had gotten permission ahead of time to get the pigs, then it doesn't sound like you'd be in the situation you're in right now. I mean, that's why we have ordinances, and I know Buddy Lalat was here before, and congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
great job. But it just seems like a lot of this could have been avoided if there had been more communication between the neighbors and everything else. And so it's like, if you had just taken that extra step to find out ahead of time, then maybe,
I'm sorry, she did get one.
hold on. You're doing nothing wrong at all, let me just tell you that. I never let anybody start talking to the person who's speaking. One, because believe it or not, people watch us at home, and we have 2 microphones in the whole room. and-
I just saw hands
Hold
going,
on.
so I was just trying to be polite, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. But you wait too, because I actually get criticism from the people who watch BCTV, and I'm trying to do a good job. I'm happy to let you speak. I just want you to wait until he's finished, and I want everybody to address us. I think I know what you're gonna say, which is that she asked Mr. Bannon ahead of time, which I think we're all aware of. But I also wanna make sure Mr. Mills gets to say his piece, because we're creating a record here, that's all. So I don't mean to interrupt you.
And I know another one of Buddy's concerns was the predators that are coming around, and I was just wondering what's being done to address the coyotes and the fisher cats and stuff like that. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll yield my remaining time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. So if you could just address, what do you do to prevent predators?
I, in all honesty, have never seen any predators. We have a cat that lives outside most of the time, and we've had him the whole time. He's never been taken. I have chickens on the property that have never been taken.
Well, I assume the dog's outside when the pigs are outside, right?
Yeah, the dog's outside sometimes too.
Are we talking about a Chihuahua, or are we talking about a
Well,
dog?
we're talking about 2, and one is kind of on the Chihuahua size.
How about the other one?
She's actually weighs about as much as them, but she's much bigger than they are. She's taller.
And is the fencing some kind of chicken wire like
There's,
material?
on one side, it is, it's the stuff up from chicken wire, because it wouldn't be strong enough. And then the rest is all a white picket fence, and then the side that, follows 91 is actually all chain link, and that's put in by the state.
How tall?
The chain link?
You just go through the various.
The white picket fence is 5 feet. It does, it's galloped though, so some might not be exact. The other side that has the chicken wire like fence, that was a 5 foot as well. And then the chain link fence is it can't be 6 feet because it's not as tall as I am, but probably 5 feet.
You know, I'm gonna let you keep going, but I just want to say something to see if we may be able to nip this in the bud. Because my view is that there are three things going on here. One is that this is an animal that's kept indoors and trained. And I think, my view personally, I'm not telling anybody here how to vote, I think it is much closer to the definition of a pet than one we normally expect a pig to be, particularly because it's not going to the slaughterhouse. Two, it seems to me that Ms. Short got a communication from the town, and it was reasonable for her to rely on that communication. She actually did to her detriment to the extent she spent some money. And so there's a principle called equitable estoppel that is rarely invoked in this room, but I think it's reasonable here that her reliance on that representation might give her the right to have those pigs. And three, it seems to me that there's not a hazard or a lack of appropriateness in the neighborhood, given that they're fenced in and kept away from everything else, and the predators are kept out. And I appreciate your very thorough presentation.
You told me to be thorough, because I want a record if you're not going to
I'm
vote for
sorry,
it.
do you want me to get the baby?
No, he's not bothering us.
No.
Okay.
But what I let you know is sometimes people on the board agree with me, sometimes they don't, sometimes they want to ask more questions before they make that decision. I just want to take a little straw poll here. Because if people do agree with me, I'd like to get that baby home, frankly.
I may be inclined towards I did have a couple of questions I wanted to ask. I wanted to have the opportunity. Is that holding up the rest of the board?
No, sure.
Do you want to
No,
just,
I have questions too.
I was there for the site visit. Who was there for the site visit? Was it just the three of us?
I wasn't.
Okay. And then I took a couple of pictures with my cell phone that I gave to Brian for them to be in the record. It was a picture of the pigs on the porch, and they had like a little wading pool. There was a picture of a pig near probably one of your cats or dog, and then it was just a picture of the backyard to get a sort of feel for it. I'm a visual person. But if you could help me just name the pets you have in the house. You've got these Benny and Hamilton pigs,
Yeah,
but you've got, I was introduced, there was one dog that was very charming. I just want to get clear to where these Benny and Hamilton fit in with all these other animals.
So that dog that you're referring to is Gizzy.
Yeah.
Then we have a dog that actually wasn't there, my daughter was walking her,
Okay.
and that is Kendall.
Okay.
And we have cats as well.
And the cats have names?
Yes.
Or they wish to remain anonymous? I know how cats can be.
No, we just grouped them together.
How many cats would that be?
We do have 6.
Okay.
Do you want their names?
No.
Okay.
And then I've noticed that, and I guess this is what's the name again?
Lori.
Lori. I guess your number 12 document, which is, I guess, Colleen Shepherd.
Yes,
And I noticed, I'm presuming you made a few check marks, perhaps?
yes, I did.
And that's your underlining?
Yes, probably, yes.
Yeah. Notified by neighbor complaints, they've sent paperwork from the town offices to stop. And I presume that refers to the email number 6 talking about the wood shavings and the chicken.
But there wasn't a lot of back and forth, and I wondered, because that is sent to Brian and Sue Fillion,
Yeah,
perhaps she was in on this somehow, and
but she would be the, what's her title again?
planning director.
Planning director, thank
Yes.
you. Anyway, I just want to make, to be understand, this, in a certain sense, this vetting conversation actually has, as far as I can determine, nothing to do with the pigs. It has to do with the chickens.
Yes.
And that it looks like,
Yeah.
if one would read this,
Well-
that you had a complaint from a neighbor, there was some discussion back and forth, and ideally, I'm presuming since there isn't more documentation, that complaint was dealt with in a way that hopefully was adequate for the neighbor. Is that a reading that I get
That
from
was
this?
my understanding.
Okay.
I hadn't heard anything else, so.
I just wanted to clarify that, because what I was looking at is to say, you've been thorough, you put these documents, but as far as I can understand, that complaint was about the way the chicken manure was handled.
I was just trying to show she's very conscientious.
Okay.
And I've heard James Valenti, I've heard the chair explain that you have to make a thorough record or you can't go
Okay.
take the next step.
Yeah, I wanted to understand
Yep.
how those, I would read, I'm sharing with you how I'm interpreting those documents. That there was a complaint, there's an email chain, and it seems that that particular thing actually has, as far as I can read, nothing to do with the pigs, it has to do with the chickens, which we're clear, in a residential neighborhood, they are allowed.
They have a permit.
They have a permit, thank you. Okay.
Even better.
So that was the extent of my questions.
At the end of Ms. Shepherd's email, she, on the last paragraph on page 1, she said that she can hear the pigs when they're outside. And then her very last paragraph is that she believes pigs are not pets and should not be able to reside on Chestnut Street West. It is a neighborhood and not a farm. And she says they should have gone to the zoning board. You did talk to Brian beforehand, but what about her noise complaint?
So as for noise, pigs do, they do make noise, but it is not any louder than a dog barking or a child screaming. And it would only be while they're outside. And I do also just want to point out that her house, even though it's not directly next to us, her house sits very far back on the lot. So it actually, we see it from our backyard. We don't see her house from the front yard. So if they were outside, I imagine she could hear it, but I could also hear from her house if people were talking or her car door being shut. So I don't think that it speaks to their volume. I just think that it speaks to the proximity. And also, she doesn't live there, so I don't know, her mother lived there, so I'm sure maybe in visiting. But pigs do make noise. They don't make noise all the time. They make noise when they're scared or when they're happy, but it's not always loud.
This is a 70 during the day, 60 at night. 70 decibels during the day, 60 at night in this district. But, he knows.
And I just.
She's trying to make me look good, but pretending like he needs to think about it.
And I would just like to say too, I would have come to you guys had I known that was the steps to take. I didn't know. So I wasn't trying to skip any steps or anything like that. I would have come to you guys.
That's why I mentioned the equitable estoppel issue, actually. It
Okay.
seems like what you did was fairly reasonable, and you relied on response from someone who had the authority.
So I have a question for
55.
Brian.
55
I have a question for Brian. Originally, she contacted you finding out if it was okay to do this, and she was told it was okay.
Yeah, so the land use regulations don't define what a pet is.
Right.
It doesn't define what farm animals are either. So it's really a matter of treatment and whether they create a hazard. So the debate between this was, she originally represented that she was going to treat them as pets and treat them in a way typical of pets. Later, a neighbor called and said that in fact they were being treated as farm animals, not as pets. And because of that dispute, I felt it was best to go to the board and have you resolve it.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, what happened after she contacted you, and you said, told you they were gonna be pets. How did this end up to be this, and it was a complaint?
That's correct. The
Okay.
neighbors contended that they were not being treated as pets, they were
Okay.
being treated as farm animals.
I mean, no matter what Brian said in the first place, if she had said, hey, I want to have some pets, and then all of a sudden she's running a pig farm out there, she can't shield herself by
All right, my
Brian's
question
title.
is to Sarah, is when you contacted Brian, did you say what type of pet you were getting?
Yeah, I said it would be a miniature pig, and I explained the weight
So-
size and how it would
You can send an
live.
email in the package.
It's number
Yeah,
5.
I'm just,
It specifically says pet.
Yeah, it says pet.
Now, on that, number 5, Brian did mention something about minimizing the neighborhood impact, that he would suggest that you keep the enclosure over towards the interstate right away. Is that something you did?
Yes, I think it's one of the emails.
And kept it away from the property line?
Yeah, because I did email him to let him know shortly after that I moved it to the side, up against 91.
Number 7.
Number 7, so yeah, number 7 is where I tell him that I did do that, and I just wanna make sure that it didn't affect the permit at all.
I just want to be clear.
That was just for chickens.
Yes.
That's a chicken coop, and there is no pig structure though, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
There's never been a pig structure.
Because they don't stay out.
So the pigs don't have the run of the whole backyard?
Yes,
They do,
They
for
Okay,
parts of the day.
it sounded to me in number 5 that he was suggesting that you keep the pigs away from the property.
Oh, okay, so this was when he said that,
That's-
that I could have a pig.
Right,
And it said,
on number
but
5.
yes, but I'm sorry, for a pig enclosure, I never did one because.
No, this isn't, okay, enclosure,
Yes,
when I looked at that, I kind of got the impression he was talking about enclosure even as far as fencing.
Oh, no,
Rather than,
Oh, I think you're talking about the
saying
coop.
allowing the pigs to go right up to your neighbor's fence.
well, because at that time, it wasn't all fenced in. So they went out on their harness.
Okay, so you chose to fence it right up to the property line?
Yes, for the dog, actually, because our
Okay.
dog, we got a puppy after the fact. And so we fenced it all in for them. And so then I was thinking, well, why
And-
not just let the pigs have it too?
And do the pigs have the run of the house when they're inside?
Well, they have a designated, we call it the pig room, it's a den.
Okay.
And,
Do the dogs have the run of the house when they're inside?
yeah,
So the dogs do, but the pigs don't?
well, they can't
I
go
just have-
upstairs, but they
Okay.
do have, for the most part, the run of the downstairs.
What I'm sharing with members of the board is a cell phone photo taken of the pigs on our site visit.
Inside.
And yes, it's an inside, and I presume it's your front porch. And again,
Yes.
they can, if they want to see it.
Yes.
Right, did you mean enclosure like a fenced-in area or like a
Swipe that way
shelter
to see a couple more.
for the pigs, or do you not remember 2 years later?
My intent had been a fence, but I think the wording is completely ambiguous, and I think her interpretation is reasonable.
That's fine, I thought you meant the shelter because of the prior sentence.
Hey, when I read it, I thought he meant the fence.
Yeah, so did I.
Just to keep it away from the neighbors, you know?
To go back to your trying to table test the board,
Yeah,
I will say it before we,
failing to table test.
Well, I will say it before if we chose to deliberate or we choose to vote. But my experience of the site visit was essentially, the pigs appeared to me much like pets. The dog Grizz liked me a lot. The pigs did not like me. I think that was just a personality thing. The cats were indifferent. I swear to God, I fell in love with that little Grizz dog. Very, very charming dog. The pigs did not, neither of us endeared each other to it. But it certainly was my perception of, there was cats, a couple dogs, or at least one dog, and then the pigs, all within this sort of, the pigs had a little, like a dog cage, but it was kept open. You know how dogs sometimes go into those.
A dog crate.
Dog crate, thank you, not a dog cage. So that was my perception of the site visit. For the rest of the board, who wasn't there?
So, remember that straw poll I was talking about?
Yes.
I'm just curious, do you folks feel like we ought to have a deliberative session, or are you on the same page as I am, where it might be appropriate to vote to approve the application?
Yeah.
To overturn my determination.
To approve the appellant's request to reverse the violation, I guess is the proper.
Yeah, I understand the neighbor's concerns. And if I were gonna vote to allow you to keep them, I think you should fence off an area closer to 91 where the pigs are, which is
Well,
away
We
from
can't
the
do it,
neighbor
we can't do it because it's not a permit application. So
Oh.
we can't have,
conditions.
right, we have to either say violation or no violation. Although I think that's a useful suggestion that, you would make your decision easier. but we can't, we don't have the authority in this. I mean, the reason I'm doing it this way is because if we take away the equitable estoppel issue, the question is, has the neighbor proved that they're livestock, or has she proved that they're pets? Who's got the stronger evidence? To me, I think there's more evidence that they're pets than livestock, and that's why I think it's appropriate to overturn Brian, even though I hate to do it, because he's usually spot on. But I mean, the neighbor says they're livestock, but besides the conclusory statement that they're being treated by livestock, we've not been offered photographs, video, corroborating witnesses saying, yeah, it smells like manure all the time, she's grazing them, or we see the slaughterhouse truck pull up. I mean, there's really no evidence other than somebody who has said, yeah, they're not being treated as pets. And I think the evidence in favor of them being treated as pets is really quite substantial. I don't actually think it's a very close question.
Yeah, and plus they keep it in the house during the winter. I mean, you know, they don't go outside.
Yeah, you don't see
I'm
much
sure your dogs
livestock.
go out in wintertime, but the pigs don't.
Yeah, they have to go outside, they don't like,
Right.
the dogs don't like to go outside
Right.
either, but the pigs just stay
Right.
inside.
All right, so I'm taking a straw poll. Can we have a motion to approve? Does anybody think that's premature? Let's have somebody make that motion.
I move we approve.
We're going to approve the applicant, the appellant's request
Request.
to overturn the
Yes.
zoning administration.
And would we clarify that by saying that we agree with the decision that these animals are pets and not farm animals?
I think the basis would be both, because it's not been proven that they are not pets.
Well, I feel like their specific application was to have this board find that these are pets and not farm animals.
Well,
I'm
but
sorry.
the thing is, they're appealing Brian's determination of their livestock.
Oh, so we have to overturn it.
We have to
It's
overturn.
a simple matter of overturning that decision.
Or that they're hazardous. I mean, and I think the evidence is A, that they're non-hazardous and not livestock, and B, that there's probably equitable estoppel argument that the applicant relied on representation and didn't violate. She didn't use that as a trick.
We didn't mess with your motion too much.
This would be useful.
Be quiet.
All right, do we get a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Any further discussion? We can still have discussion if people are on the fence. I mean, I'm not trying to push this too fast.
Well, okay, I can say that's our only option, to either approve or overturn the decision, Bride's decision. I mean, I wouldn't want to give a blanket statement that anybody who claims that their pet pig is a pet. It's like, I don't want a 1,000-pound pet pig.
Oh, I agree.
You know,
That's why.
These pigs are, to me, they're pets.
Remember my first
Right.
question? The first question, I've seen a
So-
400-pound pig.
And I will have to say that I think a huge amount of my decision-making was influenced by the site visit and seeing
Right.
the specific situation.
And I mean,
And that was sort of crucial for me to make my
So
decision.
I would say that we tell Brian, do not give blanket approval to pigs.
well, and I don't think this is an issue here, but if a person, if this was denied and the short started treating these like livestock, her neighbor has basically the infinite ability to say to the zoning administrator, hey, these are no longer pets.
Well, the zoning administrator has the right to say it then.
Zoning administrator does too, so there is a continuing obligation for Ms. Short or anybody else who has animals in her position to, if they're pets, they have to really be pets, or else you might find yourself with a zoning violation.
And so we say they are pets because they're kept in the house and all those other things that you do.
It sounds like they're domesticated, that's.
Well, yeah, they, I mean,
that's
they're,
mine.
they were pets.
Yeah.
They're fine with that.
I think my decision would be a lot more difficult if there hadn't been those first emails,
Yes.
after which you went and researched
Yeah.
and bought pigs. So I think given that fact, we have to approve them as pets.
No, I actually researched it and considered getting a pet pig at one point in
Oh,
time.
really?
You
and,
should.
they decided against it because they're probably smarter than I am.
They are pretty smart.
Okay, so we got a motion pending. Is there any further discussion? I'm just gonna double check that there's no further public comment. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Chief. Go tell Kat.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Just sit here in your.
Yeah. They don't love it. I'm so immersed in all of it.
Yeah. Okay, folks, application 2019-75, we have a motion to continue.
I make a motion
They
to
requested a
continue.
continuance, thank you.
I second.
Continue, second. Any discussion? We will. That's right, we have to do this.
We're voting to continue?
Continue application 2019, any further discussion?
Excuse me, we're still
Yeah,
having
we
a
still have to
motion.
start this, sorry. No, it's all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, administrative matters.
Okay.
Brian, you usually run our administrative, I forget who does the annual meeting.
We switched it back and forth. I think last year you might have actually done that, and I think that was well.
Well, I'll make a motion to nominate James to continue as chair.
Second.
And Brian to continue as clerk.
Nominations never need to be seconded,
Oh, all right,
but that's
well,
fine.
okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I nominate Ms. Hasegawa as vice chair. I don't remember, do we have a fourth position? Okay. It's usually treasurer, that's right. Are there any other nominations? Can I get a motion to close nomination and cast a single ballot in front of the nominees? In favor of the nominees? As a committee of the whole?
Okay.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is it for me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
2 years? 3 years? 1 year?
You have 1 year on.
Okay. So next July, I turn out. There are term limits on this. House of Representatives, no problem. Brattleboro, DRB, you got.
That's right, it's
It's 9 total, I know
It's
that.
9 years.
I can't believe I've been on this board for 9 years, but
But you can go off and then come back.
yes, that has been done. There's a workaround.
You get Miskovich back?
You could talk to him.
I have talked to him, he says no.
I know, he says.
Well,
You gotta learn Russian.
if you're interested in perhaps being my successor next year, participate in the coming year, there'll probably be an application where neither of us can share it. That happens every so often. And so think about it if you want to and tell us. Every year in July, the chair is obligated to take the board out, and so I'm going to do that, which is part of the reason. I don't usually push things forward this forcefully, but tonight I want to. So where do you guys want to go? I'll buy a beer, soda, club soda. It's up to you. We're on the record, so.
I'd like Duo because they don't have a TV.
Okay, Duo, no TV. Sounds good?
You know?
The lounge.
Yeah, the lounge.
The lounge. You would prefer that you properly refer to that business.
What? What did I do?
You're
No, I like
correct.
Kip. You are right. I'm
He said
sorry.
duos, I said the lounge.
Wait,
They're together.
Kip's does have his TV. but
We're on-
it's
we're on the
all-
same
It's
page.
cash only.
Do we have any further business to do?
No, you guys asked me to research the term limit, and it is
Oh.
in fact in the town charter.
Could I just ask a
Okay.
question? Brian, am I still on this board? There was some email.
Yes, you have been reappointed.
I was reappointed, okay. You would have let me know before the meeting.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll see you folks at Duo.
The lounge.